Welcome to the Sypno Tech Show. I'm Alex, and as you can see, we're not in the usual area that Lita and I usually film the Sypno Tech Show in, but this is a very special edition. It's the WWDC 2016 edition, so it's the Worldwide Developer Conference hosted by Apple, where they usually show off all the big stuff. I just watched the live stream, and now I'm on their website, and I decided, hey, you know what? Let's make a Sypno Tech Show right now and talk about what we just saw on the live stream, because there's a lot of new stuff that we need to talk about. So instead of waiting for the weekend, let's do this right now. It's not a live edition, but it's a special edition of the Sypno Tech Show. So let's first check out. Well, okay. Before we go over everything, if you missed the developer conference, Apple announced basically updates to 4 different things. So they basically separated their model into 4 different operating systems now. We have what is known as watchOS. So it's for the Apple Watch. So that's called watchOS. Then the second thing is the most popular one, which is iOS. iOS is for your iPhone and your iPad, so that's iOS. And they have something called for the Apple TV, it's called, I think, tvOS or something like that. They say, yeah, I think it's tvOS. So tvOS. And lastly, we had something called OS X, which is what the Macintoshes ran on. For a long time, it was called OS X. It was OS 9 and then OS X when Steve Jobs came out and announced it. It's been OS X since then for many years. We are now, officially, the first thing that they said right off the bat was that OS X is gone, and it's now going to be relabeled Mac OS. So OS X is completely rebranded to OS X. Mac OS. So it's Mac OS now, and we have iOS, watchOS, and tvOS. So interesting stuff there. 4 categories. They're official categories now. So let's jump into it. Let's go with iOS first. So Apple has announced iOS 10, which will be released in the fall. But as you can see, there's a lot of things going on here. Let's slowly try to walk it through. So iOS 10, one of the main things that people were talking about on Twitter and Reddit was emojis. So emojis and iMessage has been revamped. They kind of changed it now to incorporate things you normally get from Snapchat, from some Google apps, and also Facebook Messenger. The ability to copy links with pictures in it, or to actually write some of the fonts, as you can see here. One of the really interesting things that they were showing off was invisible ink. So this is something where the picture or the text is censored, but if you put your finger over it and you scratch over it, you can see the text. So stuff like that was what iOS 10 will be remembered for. This whole big showing was basically a emoji messaging thing. So iOS 10 is basically going to be known as the emoji update, which let me show you why. So as you can see, these are a lot of little things that are going to be added to iOS 10. If you're not too impressed right now, it's because you've probably seen a lot of this in other third-party apps. A lot of developers usually have stuff like this, like voice and let's see. Let's celebrate. Say things like happy birthday or congratulations with animations that take over the entire screen. So these are, it's kind of like bloatware. It's more like bloatware now for iMessages, which, yeah, it's cringeworthy for me. The visible ink thing, I don't know. If you have kids, maybe that might help them, but I mean, kids are smart. They can put their finger over and scratch it out too if they really have their hands on it. So it's not like it's protecting you from any sensitive content. It's literally something like teenage girls can do with each other because they think it's cute. Then we have tap back, just a tap to send one of 6 quick responses. So stuff like that we've already seen on Android a lot. Then we have like picture editors in the screen where you could do little sketches and stuff like that. A lot more emojis and stickers. So we saw a lot of Mickey and Minnie Mouse stickers. Here are some. Apparently these are going to be incorporated in iMessage now. And of course, the thing that stole the show and was lighting Twitter on fire, emoji tapping. So when you write out your message, you type out your message, they will highlight, iOS 10 will highlight words on iMessage that have an emoji. And all you have to do is tap on the word and it becomes an emoji. So emojis have never been simpler to replace words than it is on iOS 10. But yeah, that's basically what iOS 10 is all about, like iMessage stuff. And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that right now. I feel like they're catering towards like a high school crowd, or like the mothers in book clubs kind of thing, you know, not the general masses. It feels like they're also they're playing catch up to Android. Another feature for iOS 10, we're going to skip the map stuff because, and a lot of apps, a lot of the Apple apps are now open. So they're open to developers. So the SDK is now open to developers to do stuff using that. So Maps is now open for developers to use to make it along. Siri is also open to developers. So that's big news there. And then Home, if you use the Apple Home, smart home stuff, they have a dedicated app now to that. So it's a lot of just refining and redesigning of their own apps. Same thing with the music app that also has it. And they have a new feature called Raise to Wake. So if your phone is in your lock screen, instead of just unlocking it and bypassing your home menu, if you want to see your notifications, all you have to do is lift it up and you'll see the notifications appear. You can reply to it. You can 3D touch to see more information. A lot of this is like what Google has with stock Android and their and even Moto X. The Moto X had this a few years ago. You know, you wave, has the sensors, and you can check out you know, your notifications without opening your phone. So feels like they're doing a lot of catching up with Android in this edition of iOS. But yeah, so that basically is what iOS 10 is. There's also a new news app. They redesigned their news app, so nothing totally new there. What else do we have here? Oh, and there's also a redesigned Photos app. And so their Photos app on iOS is now basically Google Photos. They have something called like Memories, where they do exactly what Google Photos does, and they compile your story together. All the photos you take together, they compile a short video or a short presentation, a PowerPoint presentation of or slideshow of your pictures to music or whatever. And it's pretty easy to replace the music or to design it the way you want. It's exactly like what Android has been doing with their photo apps for a long time. Sony has the exact same thing on their Xperia album. Google Photos does a terrific job on that. However, it is important to note that this Photos app is hardware-based. It's internal, so it's not cloud-stored or anything. So in terms of security, it's supposedly much safer than Google Photos or the Android competitors. So that remains to be seen, so we have to test that out once they release in the fall. We also have Android Pay. Apple Pay. We have Apple Pay on the web. So what Apple has been showing us a lot for this WWDC for this year was synergy between their platforms. So one of the synergy ways that they were combining your desktop with your mobile device is, let's say I'm making a purchase online here, right? And I go to the screen. There's going to be a Buy with Apple Pay button next to an Add Cart, right? So you literally pick up your phone, put your fingerprint onto the fingerprint reader, and once it reads the fingerprint, whatever you see on the screen will be approved. So it's simultaneously hooking this, and you're using your phone as a authenticity device to authenticate your purchase. So that's a good way of combining your resources if you are really invested in the Apple ecosystem. But it's pretty much useless if you have a Mac but you use an Android phone, or vice versa, because it's worthless to that. You can't use that. I do not believe you can use, say, a Nexus and use the Nexus imprint to verify purchases on your Mac. It has to be with a iOS compatible device. And then, as I was saying earlier, the multi-language typing. So now they were showing off some Chinese where you can actually write in Chinese and all that good stuff. So keyboard has been improved slightly. It's basically catching up to other keyboards like Swift or the Google keyboard. There's a lot of great apps, voice dictation, stuff like that. So it looks like this version of iOS is trying to catch up with Android. They're trying to get to a certain level where people will stop complaining and saying, "Oh, Android already has that," or "Android already did that 4 years ago." We're getting closer to that point right now. Let's go back, and now let's check out watchOS, because watchOS is basically one of the things I thought was watchOS. Let's go back to watchOS. I actually thought watchOS was one of those things that was the most exciting out of all the announcements made by Apple today, because the first thing they were showing was the improved speed. So while you see in my full review of my Apple Watch very soon, I'm going to release that review in the coming weeks. But one of my biggest complaints about the watch is that the apps are very slow. They're basically useless. It takes forever to open the apps. There's no point in even using this. You can pull out your phone, be done with it, with whatever you were going to do, and the app is still not even finished opening on your Apple Watch. So the first thing they showed was how fast the opening of the apps are now. So supposedly it's much quicker now on this new version of watchOS 3.0, I believe. And now apps launch immediately with updated information, so they're always ready when you are. You can easily get the app when you want by clicking on the side button. So there's also a new shortcut where you can click on this button here and it brings it up. And also, on any page, you can swipe up and it brings up a control center, which is basically the same as on the iPhone. If you scroll up, if you use your finger and flick up, you can get a control center for quick access to silent mode or Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and all that good stuff. So we're getting that on the Apple Watch. That's a cool little neat thing. There's new faces with Minnie Mouse. There's a lot of every Apple event has a lot of Mickey in it. So we have Minnie Mouse now. There's also a new fitness tracking watch face that they were making a big deal out of. Activity sharing and all that stuff is more like Fitbit now. You can check out what your friends and family are doing and how their exercise route is compared to yours. You can also write messages, quick messages like "you're on fire" or "awesome" or something competitive like "I'm gonna kick your butt" or something like that. Yeah, a lot of cringe-worthy moments in this WWDC. So a lot of fitness stuff, nothing revolutionary. They're just refining basically what you already had with watchOS. However, I am very, very excited about the quickness. If it really is quicker, as they showed in the demo, I am very excited for that because this thing was so slow. And supposedly, you're supposed to get more animation with your text messaging, your iMessaging on your Apple Watch, like they showed here. You could see the actual emojis and the stickers, and you do get a full screen, kind of like what they were doing with iMessage on your iPhone. They're doing a full message kind of thing there. So you get like a background animation. It's kind of intrusive, in my opinion. It looks very intrusive where something explodes in front of you, but that's what we're getting here on the Apple Watch and also your iPhone. Let's move on. So this is stuff you've already been able to do. You can have the smart home controls on it, but I believe they opened up the SDK for Apple Pay for your watch too, and you can unlock your Mac now. So this is something that Samsung and Windows and Android have done in the past with their own devices, but now for starters, if you have a Mac operating system, macOS now, it's called macOS, and an iOS device with a fingerprint scanner, or your watch, you literally can bypass your lock screen. So instead of typing in your password every single time after it goes to sleep, after your MacBook goes to sleep, you can just type in, instead of typing in your password, you just click and it turns on because it recognizes that you have a compatible iOS device on you. So they know it's verified that you have access to your computer. So that's great because we've seen that on Apple, on Windows and on Android for a while. Samsung has had that with their own phones and their own computers. So it's great that we have that on iOS and macOS. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about this whole update, this WWDC being about combining all four of their platforms into one big synergetic kind of feel-good thing. So that's one way to do it. And also there is a SOS feature now on your Apple Watch. One thing interesting about this that I thought was really cool when they were doing it is if you were traveling to a foreign country, you can pull out your watch, and if you were in trouble, you can click this part open, this SOS part open, and you can call that country's police or emergency hotline. They'll show you that number. So let's say hypothetically there was a country where their hotline was 967, and that's their equivalent of our 911. And we didn't know that. I wouldn't know that, but your Apple Watch would. So all you have to do is click on it, and it'll show you what number that is, and then you can automatically dial from your Apple Watch. So that's definitely something neat to have. And watchOS is basically, it's developing a little more. And I have to say, I'm pretty excited about this. Out of all of the Apple announcements here, watchOS and this next one we're going to talk about are the two most exciting things about this entire presentation or this keynote. And that is macOS. This new macOS is a replacement of OS X, and we are getting another location. This year, this current macOS version is going to be called Sierra. It's going to be called Sierra with a nice wallpaper. Basically, it looks the same as the U70 one, except a different mountain, a different landmark. But the biggest thing about Sierra, it didn't do it this time, but my Siri just launched when I was saying Sierra. But the biggest thing about macOS in this announcement that you need to know is that macOS Sierra will feature Siri. So Siri is going to be on your Mac OS, and it's going to be on your desktop when you need it. And they showed off some really cool little features here that make Siri basically the equivalent of Cortana on your Windows device. And one thing I really like about what they were doing is that you can answer text messages with Siri since it's connected here to your smartphone. So once again, it's the whole synergy thing. Siri here recognizes how to use your phone as well. That's pretty neat, and you just pull it out from the side and you're good to go. It can locate your files. It's basically a search feature. It's basically replacing the quick search feature on your Mac OS. But one thing that was kind of weird was the snarky remarks that Siri was giving during the presentation with Craig. So I don't know if that was just like a custom thing they did for the show to make it more entertaining for people, but that was definitely not something I want every single day, Siri talking back to me like that. It might be cool for the first 20 minutes, but if it's like on a daily basis, I don't know if I can handle it. But yeah, another really cool thing about what Siri can do is drag and drop. So they were demoing something like you can ask Siri to search for a picture, like Tahoe here. And you can grab that picture from Google Photos or Safari Search or Bing or wherever. You drag it into whatever you need to do on your desktop, like you're writing an email. and that picture can be pasted automatically, drag and drop onto whatever application you're working on. So by using Siri to search for something on the web, you can take it directly from the web and drag it in. Like, that is the coolest thing in the world. Very, very efficient. Very efficient. And they expanded the use of Siri. So Siri supposedly now has a lot more commands they can do, like how much free space do I have on my Mac, play music, how do you spell broccoli? So yeah, they have Siri now on macOS. And of course, once again, like with the whole iOS photos thing, we have the photos showing the photos and the new memories. So it's kind of like what Facebook does with rediscover your memories. We don't really need to look at that. We'll skip that. And what we talked about just back with the iOS update, which is you can use your phone to verify purchases in the fingerprint. So it's synergy there. Moving on, logging in. We just talked about that. You can log in with your Apple Watch or your smartphone, and copy and paste. We just talked about that too. And okay, this is another really cool thing. So through the iCloud Drive, you can basically sync whatever you're working with onto all your devices. So for example, if you drag some pictures onto your desktop on your MacBook, that desktop photos, all that stuff on your desktop will show on your phone and on your iPad. So that's something really neat. I mean, it's been done elsewhere too on other operating systems, but it's great that it's finally on Mac. And some third-party applications have been doing this for a while, but now this is officially native. And they also have this really weird I don't even know if it's an app, but they have a setting that can help you clear out memory. If you're short on memory and you need the storage space, OS X, or sorry, not OS X, Mac OS will now smartly clear out your cache or your files that you haven't used in a long time that can be optimized for deletion. I don't know how I feel about this because I don't know if I can trust Mac OS and Apple to delete files that they deem worthy of deleting, whereas who knows, I might actually need those apps or photos or information on your computer. I might need those information that they deem unworthy of space on the Mac. So we'll test it out. We'll see how it works, but that's something they have there. And more emoji stuff on your iMessage. It's more synergy, same thing. Redesign Apple Music, iTunes stuff, and also they have like this new tab feature now. So on Safari, we've had tabs. All browsers use tabs. Now on macOS, other applications can also use tabs. So they're basically making everything more tab based, so you have more efficiency that way. That's interesting. Also they showed off this thing where you can, if you're watching a video on some source on your Mac, you can drag that and it can have a little video in the corner no matter where you're on. So it's kind of like what they have on the iPad Pro and also what YouTube has been doing too. You have that little screen on the very bottom of your computer display, and wherever you go, that source of media is going to be playing. It doesn't matter what app you're on, what website you're on. You can drag it. It'll be on your desktop, and you can watch that. So really cool stuff. It's very efficient and very useful if it works properly. So I'm very excited for that to come out. And lastly, the Apple TV updates. I don't use Apple TV. I'm not a big fan of Apple TV. So I don't really know exactly what was going on there. I kind of just dazed out there when they were talking about Apple TV. It looks just like Apple TV before. I think the Siri suggestions are smarter now. I don't even see... they're not even talking about it here on the... it wasn't even important enough for them to put it on their homepage, so we're not going to talk about that here too. But the last thing is Swift Playground. So Apple makes something called Swift, and now there's an official app that can kind of help people be developers or learn how to develop simple things, get into developing. It's called Swift Playgrounds. It's an app, and they were just showing off that you can, type some code. They'll teach you how to do a little code, and you can see what it actually does when you activate that code. So that's really neat for kids or for people like me who know nothing about coding. So we can learn a little bit about looping and functions and commands and stuff like that. So, oh yeah, like that. They're just saying it right here: types, variables, operations, and see what they actually do and what they mean in a visual. So that's definitely awesome to see, and that's on the iPad. And I think it's just on the iPad. I think it's just on the iPad. But that app is available to download right now, and you can check that out, Swift Playgrounds. No hardware today. Apple actually leaked that out to Apple sites or people that cover websites that cover Apple beforehand, telling them that there's no hardware. So we're not going to see Macs until probably the same time they're releasing the new iPads and iPhones. So a few more months. Gotta wait a few more months. But yeah, otherwise, this has been a kind of lackluster showing, in my opinion, of WWDC. Let's see, watchOS and macOS are exciting for me. A lot of people on Reddit and Twitter are disappointed with this whole showing. However, those two, I think, have tremendous upside in terms of what they will do for your performance for your devices. However, this whole event was overshadowed by the stupidity of the emojis on iOS. So iOS 10 basically overshadowed all the positive announcements that they made for OS X. Sorry, I keep saying OS X. It's going to take me some time. macOS and watchOS. But the emoji stuff was just so ridiculously bad and so over the top that it kind of just killed the whole feel here of this show. But otherwise, I think it's beneficial for 2 of the 4 OSs that Apple runs, and I'm very excited to test it out. And we'll see about iOS 10. I think that's still out for debate. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this. Hopefully you guys are going to be very excited about all the new stuff coming out with Apple technologies and stuff like that. And I will be back soon with a lot of other videos. Be sure to subscribe, like our videos, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.